All right, cleaning up my landings. I'm going to apply some isopropyl alcohol. And the board is still pretty hot. Not hot enough to bubble, but hot enough to evaporate. Alright, my landings all look pretty good. They're all intact. And same thing, clean up the back side. Try to get rid of all the flux residue I can. Alright, landings are cleaned up, and I'm going to reinstall the new HDMI port. Alright, my new HDMI port. Just want to look, just get a visual, just to see if my landings and leads are going to line up. And it doesn't look like I have any misalignments. From this perspective. Alright, so to reinstall this port, I'm going to use hot air, 400 degrees. I'm going to set my port pretty close to in place. Use the hot air here to liquefy the solder in these anchor holes. And my intent here is just to drop this HDMI port right into its place. The port's been dropped into place, and I'm just going to make sure that it's setting nice and flat. And to confirm that the port is firmly against the board, this foot up in the front should be contacting the board, as well as an even distance on this little gap between these 2 feet. Black plastic on the back may also come in contact with the board. I just want it to be visually and physically balanced. So I'm going to use this little notch to press down on the port. Firmly in place, holding it until the solder solidifies. Now the port is in place, held there with the solder in the anchors. Now I can do a point-to-point and connect these leads to the landings. All right, for this procedure, a point-to-point soldering, Going to flux my landings, flux my leads and landings. And I'm going to use a smaller D0.8 soldering tip. I'm just going to touch the toe of each lead and try to introduce a little bit of solder to each one. And the solder should be able to carry over onto my tip. Onto those leads. And I should be able to see a wetting or a liquefaction of the solder. Turn this to get a better angle over here with these end pieces. I'm just going through gently and just touching each foot. And with all those seemingly connected, I can go through with a thin tool and touch each one and see if it moves. If I get any movement, then I know that I need to retouch that solder connection. All those seem pretty sound. All right, with those soundly soldered in place, my final step now is to touch up my anchor points. I do want my anchor points to be nice and solid. So I will need to change my tip from this D08 to a higher mass D24, D24 tip. Make sure my tip is tinned. Looks a little bit dull. All right, tip is nice and tinned. Can now introduce some of the 6337 to my anchors. So it is going in here nice and flat against the anchor. Increase my thermal thermal connectivity by adding a little bit of solder. And that little wet area, that's just increasing my ability to transfer heat. Let that sit on there for a few seconds on each anchor. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. You should actually see that solder sort of suck into the anchor holes. And double check the back side, make sure the solder has come all the way through. Alright, the solder does look like it's come all the way through, so I really don't even need to do anything over here. This solder is all the way through, it looks good. The port is on. Looks slightly crooked, but that's within tolerance. And why I say that, I can see this portion of the foot just barely sticking over, more so than on the other side. But that's within its range of tolerance. All of my leads and landings are appropriately soldered in place. And that is a solid HDMI replacement. Reassemble and confirm functionality.